This week, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm joined by actual Kate Winslet, who is actually sitting in an actual chair opposite me. Do you often get asked for advice, Kate?
I do, yes.
Oh, good.
Yes, I
Great.
do.
By your children?
Yes, sometimes by my children, but less by them, I suppose, and more. And that's the right way round. I wouldn't necessarily want them to be asking me for advice unless they were really in a quandary and didn't know what to do. I would hope that they would be able to make sensible choices and decisions for themselves. But I am asked advice a lot by friends, other women, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, James in North London also needs your advice.
Okay.
He writes, I'm a drama school student and getting put forward for, quote, non-conventionally attractive roles to audition for. I know there are plenty of great actors who fit into this category and that attractiveness is subjective, but it's really knocking my confidence knowing that I'm seen as, well, unattractive. I've never thought I was particularly striking or bad looking, but this categorization has knocked my confidence a lot. Any advice as to how to tackle this would be much appreciated. Best, James. That's so sad. Kate, what would you say?
That is a shame. That's a real shame. And I mean, what I would say to you, James, is that the people who conventionally look great have got their shit going on. It is awful to have to maintain a way of looking and being physically, facially. It is awful, that level of pressure. So, James, this is a bonus for you. You never have to put that pressure on yourself. You will have the opportunity to play much more interesting characters because you perhaps don't perceive that you look conventionally attractive. Sod conventionally attractive. That's just not interesting. The most interesting actors in the world, look at people like Timothy Spall, for example. My God, he is not a conventional looking actor in any way at all. Toby Jones, same thing. You know, these wonderful, incredible actors whose performances you could watch over and over again. Those people are often much more interesting to watch and will have longer careers. You know, it's short-lived. It's short-lived, the thing of looking conventionally beautiful. It expires.
Also, just such a great insight that the people who look conventionally beautiful have their shit going on.
They really
and are under so much pressure.
Yeah.
I would say, James, that non-conventionally attractive doesn't mean you're not attractive.
Doesn't
in
mean
the
you're
real
not
life.
attractive at all.
And like, actually, you're probably so much more attractive because I find, a bit like you, Kate, people who the film industry might deem as conventionally attractive probably have that very symmetrical kind of male-female model type look that is actually quite blank when you encounter it in person.
Yeah.
And for me, the most attractive people are people who wear their life experience and have charisma and aren't necessarily going to get a contract for Calvin Klein. But that doesn't matter because you're so much more interesting.
So much more interesting. I mean, no, James, I think you've got to ask yourself the question, is it that you aren't being asked to play what you can perceive to be conventionally beautiful roles, or is it that those types of roles are actually the bigger roles? Are those roles the male leads? And actually, is what you're suffering from the fact that people aren't putting you forward for the bigger parts? And I would say to that, everyone has to start somewhere. Everyone can find their moment in playing supporting roles. And I always say that to children. It's like you all play an equal part in the whole. And so go easy on yourself and try and enjoy the opportunities that are coming your way and really throw yourself into those. Go for it. Life's too short.
Thank you, Kate. We love you, James, and thank you for writing in.
Yeah.
Next one, this is from Rani, who says, my best friend is in a long-term relationship and they spend all their time together. Every time I've seen her in probably the last year, she's been with her boyfriend. He's a really lovely guy and I've nothing against him, but I'd really like to just see my friend on her own. I've asked her to dinners and booked a table for two, but she's just turned up with him. At my birthday meal, she brought him along as well, even though I explicitly didn't invite him. How do I address this problem? She's quite sensitive, and I'm worried she'll see it as an attack if I talk to her about it. Thanks so much for everything you do, Rani. That's so lovely, Rani. Kate, have you ever had this problem?
I have.
Have you?
Yes, I have encountered this problem. Rani, what I would say to you is that in my experience, people who are so immersed in their relationships and so connected to that person that they are sharing their life with, in my experience, that person is actually suffering from self-esteem issues themselves. And they find it very hard to be on their own. Perhaps there's something that her boyfriend is doing for her confidence that is very, very specific, male-female stuff, that you as her friend just simply can't give to her. Not because you don't love her, and not because I'm sure you wouldn't do anything for her, but it's different. Maybe she, in her relationship with this man, maybe she feels found. Maybe she feels noticed. Maybe she feels properly loved for the first time in her life. So I would actually, in this situation, as much as I sympathize, I would actually let it go. She will come back to you. She will realize that she needs you and that she misses you. And if that relationship is so intense in the way that you described that it is, it's possible that it might not go the distance anyway, because perhaps she will realize that she does need a bit of space from it, and she will come back to you. So I would just trust in that a little bit more.
That is the best piece of advice I have ever heard anyone give. I have nothing to add. I think that's an amazing insight.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose,
what I see.
Yeah, I see that. I totally agree with you that there's possibly a level of insecurity there. But also, Rani, you could, if further down the line it felt like it wasn't shifting and you felt that you'd really lost your friend in some way, you could have an honest conversation that doesn't need to be an attacking conversation, where you can lead with love and you can say, I love the time that we spend, just the two of us. And is there a way we could do that once in a while? Because I really value and cherish that time. Because that can't be perceived of as an attack. That's actually just you paying someone a really loving compliment.
Yeah.
And hopefully honestly expressing a bit of what you want too from the friendship.
And you know, one thing I would just also observe too, Rani, is that maybe you need to have a little conversation with yourself and just ask yourself the question, do you actually like your friend's boyfriend? Because if you don't, trust me, she can pick up on that. And it's possible that part of the reason why she doesn't want to spend time with you one-on-one is because she knows that you know that she's perhaps not with someone who you believe is really, really the best guy for her. And she probably isn't strong enough to hear it, especially if she's sensitive.
Yes. Have you ever been in a situation where a friend of yours has been dating or married someone you don't like and you've said something about their partner? I've done that once and I would never do it again.
No, I can honestly say I haven't done that.
Well done.
Yeah,
It's because you're so wise.
Okay, note to self, don't do that.
This next one is from Charlie, whose pronouns are she, her, in Buckinghamshire. Charlie says, my failure is feeling like I'm failing to balance motherhood with my career. I've 2 daughters and I want to show them I work hard and I'm a strong female role model, but I also want to be there to pick them up from school every day and not have a nanny. How do I get this balance right? I either feel like I'm on the school run and failing at work or not there for my daughters. Any advice welcome.
What I would say to, it is the juggle, you will always feel that you're juggling. That is just one thing that I'm afraid I think is part and parcel of being a mother. However, it is possible to organise your time a bit better. And if you can, I would suggest that you try and do that. So even if you have a nanny who does a few hours for you a day and perhaps doesn't necessarily do the school run, but is at home cooking meals for the next 3 nights that you can just have on standby in the fridge, so that when you do get your girls home from school, you're able to just play with them for a couple of hours and then perhaps they can go off and eat their food while you're tying up your work bits for the rest of the day. I don't know how old your children are, but if they're young enough, perhaps they can just entertain each other whilst they're eating dinner and you can do other bits that you need to get done and then stop when it's bedtime and be with them and do stories and all of those things. I would just suggest that if you try, and even I find this hard and I've definitely failed at this many times in my life too, but if you try and organise your week really well and create literally a timetable for yourself, I'm sure you've already done this, but perhaps it's a timetable that isn't sustainable. So maybe think again, maybe do consider having that little bit of help if you can afford it, even if it's a few days a week. It just might help you to feel that you can get more done and really step away from the work and be really present for your children when you are actually with them.
Great, great practical tips. And
Yeah.
I have very little to add to this one too, Charlie, because I don't have my own children. But what I would say on a psychological level, you talk about wanting to be a strong female role model. And for me, that encompasses rejecting unnecessary guilt. Like, the guilt is not yours to inhabit. We have been sold that myth by the patriarchy over millennia that we must constantly feel guilty all of the time. But in rejecting that guilt and choosing not to feel it, you are being a strong female role model for your children. So just remind yourself of that as well.
Yeah, I totally and utterly agree.
Finally, we have a relationship question from an anonymous listener who says, I've been with my boyfriend for 7 years and I really love him, but I don't want to have sex with him anymore. It's not because of him, as I still find him super attractive, but truthfully, I've put a lot of weight on since being with him and no longer feel sexy in my own body. He insists he finds me attractive, but I can't find it within me to love myself enough or feel attractive whatsoever. I worry this is ruining our relationship. What should I do?
Oh my God, that breaks my heart.
Mine too.
First of all, you're gorgeous.
Yes.
So I'm just going to say that right now. We've all had moments in our lives, I think, where we have physically not felt as charged and the best version of ourselves that we know we would like to feel. And that's not even necessarily always to do with weight. It can just be to do with what's going on at that time in your life. One thing I would say to you is that sometimes women will have a real dip in libido because there might be stuff going on with their thyroid.
Yes.
There could also be stuff going on with your levels of testosterone. So a lot of people don't know this, but women have testosterone in their body. When it runs out, like eggs, it's gone. So once it's gone, you have to replace it. And that is something that can be done. And you'll feel sexy again. I know. So, I would suggest that you, for your physical self, have your thyroid levels checked and your testosterone levels checked as well, because those things could have a direct impact on actually how you're feeling, which is not your fault. Our bodies are weird and they behave in strange ways, especially as we get older. So there could be a dip in those hormonal levels for you that is actually contributing much more than you think to how you feel about having sex with your boyfriend. So I would definitely go ahead and do that. But if he says he loves you and it's not about how you look or anything like that, I would really just listen to him and believe him. Lap that up. Go easy on yourself. You only have one life. Just go easy on yourself. And if he adores you, let him bloody ravage you.
Yes.
Do it.
I think also intimacy isn't just about sex. Intimacy is also about honesty and safety and feeling secure enough that you can have an honest conversation. And it sounds like your boyfriend can provide that safe space for you. And I think you should have a really honest conversation with him about how you're feeling and everything that you've just told us. You've been so brave to tell us anonymously. Could you potentially tell him? Because I bet that you would be met with more love and grace than you imagine you deserve, which is partly what breaks our heart when we read this message, Anonymous. And I think that maybe in finding that grace and love, you might be able to relax a bit more in believing it. And maybe that will also help.
Yeah.
But basically do everything Kate Winslet tells you to, because she is an amazing advice giver. We're running out of time. Please just tell me something about filming The Holiday. What was that like? What was your favourite bit?
Filming the holiday was actually surprisingly challenging. The shoot,
Was it?
Yeah, the shoot ran over. It was a really long shoot. There was just so much to do. It was a big film. You know, we had lots of different locations. It was a studio film, so there's always a lot of people involved when it's a studio film, which is not my preferred way of working. I prefer doing things that are smaller and more intimate. It was a lot of fun. Working with Jack Black was just an absolute blast. As you would imagine, it was everything I had hoped it would be, and more, just having him as a partner, as a scene partner. It was just fantastic. What else can I tell you about the holiday? The cottage.
Cottage.
I know, but it was just a facade. It wasn't real.
In a way, that's good, because I've lived my whole life since seeing that movie thinking I need a cottage like
I need
that.
to find
That's
that
my
cottage.
aspiration.
Didn't exist. It was built. So the facade was built. It was just a shell. So every time I would do a scene where I had to walk through the front door, I'd walk in the front door, I'd shut the door behind me, and I would be standing in the dark on rubble with like bits of old scaffolding and empty Coke cans and bits of chewing gum wrapper on the floor. And all the interiors were sets built in Los Angeles.
Oh my goodness.
I know.
Okay, that's an amazing thing to have revealed. Thank you.
I know. So that's just one to share there.
Okay,
Yeah.
final question.
Yeah.
When was the last time you saw or chatted to Leonardo DiCaprio?
My God. It's quite a while ago, actually. I think I last saw him probably at the Emmys. At the Emmys, whenever I was there. Was it 2021, was it?
Yes, post sort of mid-COVID.
2021.
Okay.
It was still a bit COVID-y. Yeah, there was still lots of testing going on and things like that. I think that was the last time I saw him, and I last communicated with him about 2 weeks ago.
Oh, let's get him on the phone now. I'm kidding. I love that you're still close friends.
Yeah.
That you shared that experience together.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Kate. You've been magical.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
Kate motherfucking Winslet. Sorry, I am going to swear because I feel like this was a guest who really deserves that level of swearing. That level of, so I can't even speak. I'm still giddy. Beautiful Hannah, my amazing producer, is in the studio with me, and we are both so on a high after that, aren't we?
I'm completely starstruck. I don't get starstruck.
It's true, you don't.
She was phenomenal.
And she turned up, I just need to set the scene. She turned up on her own, having, I think, driven here or got a taxi from 2 other things she did this morning, 2 shoots. She turned up on her own, carrying everything in a bag, saying, I'm really sorry, my tummy's going to rumble because I haven't eaten. Do you have any snacks? Ate a packet of salt and vinegar Snacker Jacks. I was so happy she chose salt and vinegar because it's my favourite flavour. And I was like, we're already spiritually connected, Kate. And there was such an absence of ego, entourage, or faffery that one expects to accompany an A-list superstar of that calibre. And the fact that she turned up totally as herself and showed up as herself in the interview, I think was something that was so special.
I think it's important to say that guests sometimes turn up with an entourage of 8 people. There might be hair, makeup, stylists, PR, manager, agent, and that's fine. We deal with that. But it felt like a statement that she was turning up. Well, maybe it was just her. I mean, it was just her. She was 20 minutes early.
Yeah, that was the other thing. Obviously, because she is a superstar, we had an hour with her. We were told originally we had an hour. And then her people asked you, Hannah, how much would it require to do Failing with Friends? And you said 15 minutes. And they're like, yeah, that's fine. She can tack that on. So I was very aware that we had an hour, 15 minutes. But for her to turn up early was such a sign of respect and generosity.
Totally.
And it meant that we weren't kind of frantically rushing around. We could set up all the mics and everything. And then the actual interview, I mean, I was saying this to you before, Hannah, it was such a joy for me to research it because I realised how much I love Kate Winslet and how many of her roles I have seen and gobbled up and feasted on. And so it came really naturally. And I don't know why sometimes it feels like the How to Fail conversations have a really good flow. And sometimes it feels like the flow is trickier to navigate or trickier to find. And with Kate, it just felt like we were right in it from the beginning.
And I was saying to you, Elizabeth, that I think it did really honestly sound like whether it was for prep or she's just a mega super fan, I'm sure it's the latter. She clearly listens to How to Fail, or has done in the past.
That was so sweet of you because I didn't get that vibe, but let's pretend that it's true.
Her failures were so spot on and so on brand, as it were, so honest, like you say. I feel like it must be true.
Yes, and she said to me before we started recording that I was commending her on her failures. I was like, thank you so much. They're so excellent. There's loads we can talk about. And she said, I really put it off for a while. And it was sort of hanging over me. And she said it was really interesting psychologically, like why I put it off. And then finally, she said, I had my publicist in America saying, you've got to do these. And she's like, I've got to write them. I've got to do them now. And then she's like, I just wrote them and didn't think about them and then sent them. But I do think that it is actually quite a confronting thing for many people to do, to come up with failures that they don't mind discussing. But she completely nailed it, as she does every single role. And 100%. Then afterwards, after we stopped recording, we asked her, as we sometimes do, we asked her to do a short piece to camera saying, I'm on How to Fail and you can listen wherever you get your podcasts.
For social media, yeah.
Most people, most guests, most of our lovely guests have to do at least like a couple of takes.
Absolutely, and get the words jumbled up, and it takes a few takes.
Totally understandably, because it's something that we spring on them at the last minute. Kate, do you want to explain what she did?
She looked down, we had a piece of paper we gave her, and she looked down, she composed herself, she looked straight at the camera and just delivered her lines as though she was born to do it, which
Flawlessly.
Clearly she is. I mean, what a professional.
Photographic memory, she said.
Yes.
Yeah.
Flawless.
The other thing that I want to just quickly touch on, even though it was so obvious from her interview that her beauty is so much more than flesh deep, like she is such a wise, eloquent, extraordinary soul. And yet she is also just phenomenally beautiful. And I just have to say that. I could not stop looking at her face. And I loved her outfit. She was wearing this oversized jacket that she said she nicked from a shoot.
Yeah.
Jeans, boots.
Yes.
I liked the boots because the boots were like walking in the country boots. They weren't like fashion stiletto boots.
That. She had a very relaxed aura, but just so knew her mind in everything she did and said and wore.
Yes. Rooted. I feel like she was a very rooted person. Well, if you hadn't gathered by now, we absolutely loved Kate Winslet. And my passion will remain undimmed for many, many years. And I'm glad I got to ask geeky questions about some of my favourite films.
100%. Come back anytime, Kate.
Yes. Open invite.